In this session, I'm going to take a look at troubleshooting collector connectivity issues. So what you might see in your EventSentry installation is that you're just not getting any data from any remote host. You may get data from the local agent where EventSentry is installed, but you're not getting any data from any other remote machine, or you may not get any data at all. So the best place to start troubleshooting is in the EventSentry management console. Here on the first welcome string, you can see the status of all the components, including the collector. So you'll want to make sure that the collector is indeed running. If it's not, you can click that tile here and start the service there. Now here we can see that it is already running. And we can see here in the little status tile here that we do have one connection. And we have a little warning icon indicating and telling us that there's only one agent connected, which implies that something may be off because normally you'll have more than one agent connected to the collector. So now let's continue our troubleshooting in the web reports. In the web reports under settings, collector status, we can see this dialog here. And here we can see again that we only have one connection, and we can see that we had more connections up until a little while ago when the connections dropped to 1. And if we click on the connections tab here, we can also see that only one agent is connected. And here we can see which agent is connected, and that's actually the local host, the EventSentry server itself. So the collector is running, the local agent is connected, but remote hosts are not, which almost certainly indicates some sort of a networking issue. So now let's focus our attention to one of the remote agents that are not connected. Here I have a test workstation running Windows 11. And I'm in the command prompt, in administrative command prompt, in the EventSentry installation directory. So always Windows System 32 EventSentry. If we do a delisting here, we'll see a bunch of folders and of course the main agent binary. And we're going to just execute that with the question mark. And you'll notice there's a collector test option here. So we'll specify that. And we can see that this is taking quite a while. Normally this will return in about a second. And we can see that it cannot establish a connection with the collector. So now we know, okay, the collector IP address is correct here. So that's 20.20. We've looked at that earlier here in the management console. And generally speaking, we recommend using a host name here so you can seamlessly migrate to a different collector if you have to. So something like collector.yourdomain.local or something like that, rather than using an IP address. But in this case, we have an IP address. We can see, okay, it has the correct IP address here, the port number, but it says connection timed out. So that makes sense. So the collector, so the remote agent can't connect to the collector. So now let's go back to the EventSentry server to see if we can find out if anything is blocking incoming network connections. And the most logical place, of course, to start is going to be the firewall. So we're going to look at Windows Firewall here. Let's look at our inbound rules here. So of course you can verify and review the firewall settings here. You can see, okay, the firewall is on for the domain profile, it's off for the private profile, it's on for the public profile, etc., etc. And you can see here the EventSentry during the installation actually adds quite a few rules to allow traffic in, and any rule that's enabled is going to have a green check mark next to it. And you can see here that this check mark is missing for the EventSentry collector line, and it says it's not enabled. So we're going to want to fix that, right click and say enable rule. So now we are allowing traffic to reach the collector port. And you may not have these rules at all, in which case you can just click new rule and make sure you allow traffic to port 5001 or whatever you've configured to use for the collector. So 5001 is the default. Now changes to the firewall are effective immediately. So we'll go back to the workstation now and we'll simply repeat that test we did earlier. And we'll see if it's better. And now it works. So now we are connected to the collector. Another great place to see what's going on is in the event viewer. So sometimes it's not as simple as simply the port being blocked, but there may be more deeper issues, if we can call it that. So we'll go to the event viewer. And the EventSentry agent actually logs a great deal of information and details to the application event log when it connects or when it cannot connect to the collector. And I'm going to minimize these windows here just to make this a bit less confusing. Now, the resolution is not the best, but we can take a look here And here's some of the things we can look at. So, of course, we're looking at anything that says source EventSentry. And if you're using the EventSentry event viewer, there's a category column that says collector client that really can help find events here. But what you want to look for is anything that's in the 900 range from the EventSentry source. So if you go down here and look a little bit, in general, they're going to be warnings or errors, of course, when there is a problem. So now we can't really see much here. We can just see that the last message here was about 30 minutes ago that the EventSentry agent was stopped. So that's an interesting indication. The EventSentry agent is stopping. So that's not something that we want. But here it says it's stopped. So we're going to bring up the services application here. Look for the EventSentry service, and we'll notice that it's stopped. So of course, if the agent is stopped, it's not going to connect to the collector. So we can simply start it here. And we'll close that again. And we do a refresh here. And again, like I mentioned earlier, we want to look for anything that's in 900 range. So here we have a successful event that essentially says EventSentry agent successfully established a secure connection with the collector. Again, we have the IP address and the port. So everything is looking good. So that agent had two issues. First of all, it was blocked through the firewall on the EventSentry server, but it was also stopped. So somebody must have either on purpose for troubleshooting or accidentally stopped the agent of that machine. So those are the main things you can do. So don't forget to utilize this command line utility that will test connectivity to the collector, and also make sure that the EventSentry agent, of course, is running, and look at the application event logs. So in this case, there's nothing here, but if there are other issues like issues connecting or issues with the certificate, then that should show up here. So we're kind of done now. So let's go back to the collector status and see what's been happening here. And we can see now that, oh, we have a whole lot of connections now. So a lot of hosts have been connecting to the collector here. And if you go back to the status, we can see that we have 40 connections now. We had 41, now we got 40, so we're almost up to where we want to be. So simply fixing that firewall rule here resolved all the issues that we had. I am going to connect to one of the other remote hosts to show what the event messages look like when the agent cannot connect to the collector. So let's actually go back in here. We have under groups, we have our servers, and I'm just going to connect to this server right here. In the quick tools, I have a remote desktop option that's built in to any EventSentry installation. So let's connect. Got another small window here. And let's bring up the event viewer again. It's already here. You can, of course, filter this, but since it's mostly EventSentry events in here, it's not really necessary. So like I mentioned again, reminder, the event ID we're looking at is anything in the 900 range, and that's not an informational event. It's usually an error or a warning. So if we look here, only about 20 minutes ago, we can see an error message logged by the agent that says the EventSentry agent is unable to establish a secure connection with any of the listed collectors. Connection timed out. So that was the same error message we got from that other agent when we tried it from the command line. And we can go down here. We can see here that it's not attempting to process backup items that it's been caching because it can't establish a connection with the collector. And we'll log this event frequently until a connection can be established. And of course, going all the way to the top here, what you want to see is a 910 event, because that usually indicates that the agent was able to connect successfully. And this is logged as a warning because it was previously unable to connect. And you can also look for this task category here on this machine with 23. So that is the collector client. You can see here that all these 900 events are from that same task category 23. Yeah, so we can see, we know now this agent was able to connect, but again, the application event log is a good place to look for errors in regards to the connectivity with the collector. So we're going to log off, and same here. I'm going to log off here as well. So again, start off in the EventSentry management console, make sure the collector is running. Now we can see that we have 41 connections again, so there's no error messages being logged here, so everything looks good. If there are issues visible here, or even if they're not, go back to the collector status to review the number of connections. review the firewall settings, and utilize that command line utility, that command line option of the agent to test the connectivity with the collector. Now, in addition to connectivity issues that are related to networking problems, there can also be issues with the collector certificate, since it does use TLS for secure communications, and the shared secret, which is essentially a password that's being negotiated between the agents and the collector. Issues with the certificate are somewhat easy to resolve. If you go to the collector dialog again, you can see that there is the option to reset the certificate. So the certificate is usually created when you first install EventSentry, and if there's ever an issue with a backup or a restore, for example, of the EventSentry machine, or if the certificate for some reason gets removed or corrupted, then you can use that button to create a new certificate on the collector. What's important is that when you do reset the certificate, that you have the ability to push the configuration to the remote agents to let them know that the collector now has a new certificate. Because by default, agents will of course cache the certificate of the collector and will refuse to connect to any collector that has a new certificate, of course, to prevent impersonation attacks, for example. But if you're seeing event log messages on the remote agents that are indicating that the agent is not trusting the certificate, that the certificate has changed, for example, or that the collector service cannot start because of a corrupt certificate, then utilize that reset certificate button and push the configuration to the remote agents. And if you actually click that button here, we'll give you detailed instructions on how to proceed with that collector certificate reset. I'm going to say no here because we don't want to do that right now. Another important thing to know is that each agent, when they first connect to the collector, they establish a shared secret, like a password, with the collector, and that is then being used to essentially verify the remote agent. So if another agent connects or attempts to connect with the same name but doesn't have the correct password, the collector will reject that connection. That will be shown in the application event log here on the machine running the collector. And that is tied to the unique ID of the remote agent. So not just the host name, but the ID. And that ID is stored in the registry. Here we're on the main EventSentry registry key, and if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you will see that there is a unique host ID value. It's a UUID, and that is being used by the collector to identify the remote agent. So this is important to know for a very specific scenario when you're cloning machines. So if you're cloning a machine that already has the EventSentry agent installed, then you're also going to be cloning that unique host ID, and that's going to cause problems because the collector already has a password established, and it is potentially not going to like multiple machines connecting with the same unique host ID. So whenever you clone a machine, make sure that you clear that unique host ID value either before or after you're starting up that cloned machine. And when there are issues with the shared secret, then there's a very simple way to resolve this. You can simply click the host name here and click the reset shared secret button here. And that will simply tell the collector, okay, so this is a new agent, something happened with the shared secret. Now let's establish a new password with that agent. And if you have to do this for a lot of machines or for all of your machines, then again, on the collector dialog, there's the button here, reset shared secrets. So that will essentially tell the collector, okay, just get rid of, purge your entire local database with the shared secrets and establish new shared secrets, new passwords with all the remote agents.